Hi there. Today I'm tasting a rather popular Australian Shiraz. This is Mollydooker's The Boxer, 2019 vintage of that. Mollydooker, a relatively young company. Their first release of wines came in 2006. The company was started by Sarah and Sparky Marquis. They were a couple who had gone through winemaking college together, had learnt their trade, and spent time prior to 2006 making wines for other people, which had gained them, some really good critical acclaim, but not necessarily. They hadn't necessarily been fantastic financially viable. So when they started Mollydooker, there's a story about the fact that not long before they released, they were actually they virtually ran out of money, and it was a loan from somebody they knew who kept them going, and they were able to release their wines in 2006. So this first release happened, and the 2004 vintage of the Boxer in June of 2006 was named by a critic, Robert Parker, as the best value red wine in the world. Pretty successful, you'd think, to be named as such in the Wine Advocate. However, you have to see this in the context that not only was the Boxer named as the best value red, in that same lineup, another one of their wines, Two Left Feet, which was a Cabernet Shiraz blend, came second. And another wine, the Cabernet Maitre, came fourth. And then in the same set of reviews, the best value white wine in the world, they only make one white wine, was the Violinist, also from Mollydooker. So a very successful tasting there as far as they were concerned from Robert Parker. And that led to their wines selling out in just 19 days, which was rather a reverse in their fortunes. It meant that in 2007 they were able to buy their own vineyards and a winery. So a real sort of stellar start to the brand, and I think you do need to think of this as very much as a brand. I mean, it's noticeable that Sarah Marquis is named on the front label, whereas actually the fruit sources, which are McLaren Vale and Langhorne Creek, are only named on the back label. This is a wine with a particular style, rather than necessarily reflecting the terroir of the region. Sarah and Sparky parted company, unfortunately, in I think it was about 2015, and a couple of years after that she took over sole control of the winery, and now runs it. Amongst her team are her son Luke and her daughter Holly. So it's still very much a family company, although Sparky's no longer involved. The style of the wines is really trying to emphasise fruit, ripe, rich fruit. So picked at high ripeness, and you'll find that alcohol levels are, generally pretty high. This is 15.5%. 16% is not unusual. So these are gutsy wines. At the same time, they're trying to de-emphasise structure and tannins. So it's really the sort of the fruit weight that is of interest to these wines. In terms of winemaking, there's a certain amount of use of micro-oxidation in terms of trying to make the wines as accessible as young as possible, and also the wines are fermented in oak and they're aged in oak, and that oak is American oak, quite a large proportion, about 45% of which is new oak, so you're getting quite a vivid vanilla sort of contribution to that in terms of the flavour. I should say this particular vintage has also been quite acclaimed. The Wine Spectator named it as its top sub $30, that's US dollars, Australian red wine. So that's continuing the level of success. I mean, the winery's won an awful lot of awards. So very clear style of wine. So let's have a look at it and see what we think. First thing to say is the colour it's opaque. I can't see the stem of the glass looking down through that. It's a dark, almost black red with fairly vivid purple at the rim. As I swirl the the wine. It's producing quite heavy tears. As I say, it's 15.5% alcohol. That's hardly surprising. And the colour is staining the glass as well. So, you know, good signs of intensity there. I mean, I'm swirling it now, but actually this has been filling the room with its aromas. It's sort of ripe, dark fruit, high ripeness, high toned, very attractive, hedonistic aromas. So, giving it a good smell, it's like sort of very ripe black cherry, but heading on into overripe fruits, so slightly raisined, and notes of, say, black olive, and also leathery notes over the top of that, although generally quite sort of ripe and rich, but there is that sort of high tone note. Also, nicely married in there are notes of vanilla and quite clean cedary oak coming through. Possibly even just a tiny touch of black pepper at the end there, which would be fairly classic for Shiraz. So let's have a taste. That's velvety textured, mouth-filling, smooth, rich, ripe, warming. It's very alcoholic, but at the same time, the richness of the fruit is stopping the alcohol from being hot on the finish. There's a slight drying note on the back palate where there's a sort of a cedary note, lovely clean oak that's sort of tinged with vanilla and a little bit of sort of ripe red cherry fruit. But there's much more of the dark cherry, the raisin. There's a chocolatey edge, chocolatey texture, I suppose, as well. That sort of very velvety structure, velvety smooth. The alcohol's not really stopping the fruit from expressing itself at the finish because there's just so much fruit. The acidity is not mouth-watering. However, there's such a freshness to the fruit that there must be reasonable acidity in there. I can feel sort of slight lively salivation on the edge of my tongue, but it's not major. You know, it's quite soft acidity. The flavours are lasting really nicely. I mean, I would guess this is a wine that you could keep for 4 or 5 years. It's fruit concentration. However, why would you need to? It's beautifully complex now. It's rich, it's hedonistic, it's approachable. If you like this very unsubtle style of sort of full-bodied Australian Shiraz with sort of rich, ebullient fruit, it's fantastic to drink now. It's a wine that sort of delivers what it says it's going to do. Evidently, Mollydooker means as a left-handed boxer, a southpaw. So if you look at the fellow on the label there, you'll notice that he's wearing 2 left-handed boxing gloves. And this is because evidently both Sarah and Sparky were left-handed, and that's where the name Mollydooker comes from. So I hope you found this interesting. I would certainly suggest that if you like sort of big, rich, ebullient wines, the wines of Mollydooker are well worth looking at. And if you're drinking them young, give them the shake and see if you can wake them up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've enjoyed the video, like and share. Do join us again. Bye now.